Closing out this weekend's AmericaFest convention in Phoenix, Vice President JD Vance sought to claim the mantle of MAGA's heir apparent amid an event marked by public feuds among some of the conservatives' biggest names. Erika Kirk, now CEO of Turning Point USA, endorsed Vance for president in 2028. The endorsement comes just 11 months into President Trump's second term, and polls showing congressional Democrats with a growing edge heading into 2026 and the pivotal midterms. NewsNation's Joe Khalil is live at the White House. Joe, what is the impact of this endorsement for Vance this soon, and those who may be thinking about seeking the Republican nomination 3 years from now?
Jessica, it is obviously a big deal. Obviously, it's a very early endorsement. We've still got, 3 years left here. But clearly the MAGA base and young conservatives still hold a lot of stake in Turning Point USA after Charlie Kirk's death. So the fact that you've now got Erika Kirk, who's sort of taken that mantle already, endorsing Vice President JD Vance, what it does is it seems like it's an attempt to sort of consolidate that base, that portion of the Republican voter electorate behind JD Vance pretty early. So obviously very important for him. He gave a speech last night at the conference, and it was in many ways an attempt to try to be a unifying message that he gave. There are obviously several factions even within the MAGA base, but it sounded an awful lot like a speech that one Vice President JD Vance might give if he were actually on the campaign trail in 2028. Take a listen here to just a portion of it.
We don't care if you're white or black, rich or poor, young or old, rural or urban, controversial or a little bit boring or somewhere in between. People of every faith come to our banner because they know that the America First movement will make their lives better, and they also know that the Democrats don't care about anything other than maybe transing their kids. So if you love America, if you want all of us to be richer, stronger, safer, and prouder, you have a home on this team.
So you heard there, again, some common themes, Jessica, that I think you're likely going to hear continuing through the next few years. There was a unity message, but as you also heard there, it wasn't all unity and Christmas trees and season of giving. There was a lot of attacking toward the Democratic side as well. He did name specifically Governor Gavin Newsom, former Vice President Kamala Harris, calling them radical, saying that the administration has done away with DEI. This is what JD Vance's prospects look like right now. If you look at his favorable, unfavorable, as you can see here, he's actually 8 points underwater, but given this is very early right now, and this is a difficult environment for Republicans at the moment. But what he has going for him is, if you look at some of the other top contenders that people are at least considering, people like Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Governor Ron DeSantis, he clearly has a sizable lead over those two. So you would put him in the sort of pole position. It's also worth mentioning that Secretary Rubio did say on the record, if JD Vance runs in 2028, that Rubio would be a supporter of Vance's and wouldn't take him on in a primary. Again, it's very early and things can change. But that is where it stands right now, Jessica. So if you're JD Vance, things are looking like you're in the pole position, and an Erika Kirk endorsement certainly isn't going to hurt you in that sense.
Sure. Joe Khalil at the White House. Joe, thanks so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.